The average Punjabi family will have to work 74 years to pay 1 year's of tuition.
And one day, yeah, I do feel the pressure. We have to say something to them to console them and to say, no, don't worry, Dad, I'm fine, I'm doing good. So that's kind of lie, but...
Why do you have to lie?
Because we don't really want them to be depressed. We don't really want them to cry for us because they sent us here to have a great life.
Becoming an international student or studying abroad is a huge challenge for a lot of people. And I think that a lot of things should be considered. A lot of schools should be researched. A lot of information needs to be gathered before a student decides to study in a different country. I'm going to discuss things that students should prepare for and issues that they could run into trying to study in North America, like United States and Canada. North America has the largest population of international students. They have like 5% of all students enrolled in higher education, and a lot of them, all the 5% are international students. So choosing to study in North America is a good opportunity. It's exciting, but it comes with a lot of challenges and a lot of hurdles and a lot of issues that the student needs to be prepared for. A lot of these students borrow money from family, friends. Their parents borrow money in hopes that they come to North America to find a good career and find a good job and find a better life. A lot of them use it as a way to get permanent residency, and while others use it as a way to just get a good education and maybe use that when they go back home or use it for themselves where they go to school. So international students have to deal with things like when they first come, or they have to deal with homesickness, adapting to a new culture, a new language, a new way of life, a new way of communicating. Some of them may not be well versed in English as they should be or as they would like, and they may need more practice, and it makes the journey a little tougher for them. And I think that they should study. I want to say gather more information in this. Probably take more classes to learn the language better, and look at things. Try to study the culture, the economics, the social fabric, and even the landscape of the country they're going to study in. I'd really advise international students to really take a look at the economic situation. Take a look at your economic situation realistically. A lot of times your families borrow money, you borrow money, and it's very tough. That money usually does not help with everything. Usually you end up struggling, and it's a real struggle, and you do have to get a job. And especially right now, where economics are not really that favorable for people, not even for those who live domestically in North America. Food is high, rent is high, transportation is high. You really need to do your research, plan early, study the cost of living, study the medium income. Don't listen to, I would say this, there are good schools, yes. The school's objective is to get your money, okay? Don't listen to their sales pitch. Research for yourself. If you have someone on the ground, talk to them. Another approach that students use is going to high school in North America if they can before they go into university or college. I think this is a better idea because you get a better chance to get adjusted to the life and to see how that culture is. But not everyone can do that, so we'll go for a more pragmatic approach. Again, make a budget, okay? Check the living costs. The living costs vary from city to city, state to state. My recommendation is don't go to a school in these larger cities. Don't go to a place like San Francisco, New York, Toronto, Montreal, Chicago. Stay away from these large metropolitan cities because they're very expensive. Even if you drive as far as maybe 60 miles or 100 kilometers out, it's still going to be very expensive. I would say, if of course you want to research university first, make sure the university is accredited. Look up the accreditation systems in North America and find the university that you want to go to under that system. Research what they offer, research their standing, okay? Don't just pick a fly-by-night school. Some of these schools just want your money. Even some of these well-known, well-named schools just want your money. So don't listen to them in regards to your expenses, because there are some horror stories out here of them not helping students find somewhere to stay and students end up homeless. I will get into that later. Me personally, I would pick a school that's in a city with 500,000 or less population. Again, you're better off in a place with 500,000 or less, whether it's 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, 30,000. These size cities or towns provide a cheaper cost of living. So check to see if there's a good school in a smaller city, or I call a small city big town or similar, anywhere from maybe, again, 30,000. I'll say 50,000 to 500,000, because I know some of you don't want to go somewhere too small because you want somewhere where there's a little bit more diversity. I understand that. So maybe a town with 50,000 to 500,000. Anything where the cities are metropolitan areas and you get over 500,000, that's when you get into expenses, an expensive place, and even a harder place to find somewhere to live. Think about how you want to live. Do you want to live on campus, or do you want to rent an apartment? If you want to rent an apartment, especially, again, a smaller city was better for you. Do you want to have a meal plan, personal grocery shopping, or eating out? Eating out is expensive, so that's out of the plan. I won't suggest that. A lot of you can cook, so I would suggest cooking, buying your groceries and cooking. Also, public transport or car. I doubt, unless you're one of those rich international students where your parents pay for everything, your parents are millionaires, you can make it, you can pretty much go where you want to go. Then again, some of you do have parents with money, but even their money is limited. So I would still suggest you all go to a place where there's 500,000 people or less. But again, if your parents are rich millionaires, then you can go to school in these larger metropolitan areas. I would also look into, transportation, whether you need a part-time job or not. Most of you probably do. Just make priorities of what's important things. Tuition and fees is important, so you want to make sure that is paid. Again, a lot of your parents have struggled to get you here. Some of you have well-off parents. Again, it's tough. It's a really tough decision. So do your research, okay? Don't always trust recruiters. Don't always trust a representative. Do your own research online. Look at cost of living. Get other people's opinion. Check YouTube or call people that are there and find out what they're really experiencing. This will give you a better idea of what to expect when you do arrive, or maybe give you maybe make you think or delay your schooling, right? Or delay when you arrive for schooling. Because you don't want to end up in a challenging situation, and that causes you to be in a desperation, a situation where you're desperate. Okay, you want to think about essentials like accommodations, tuition and fees, electricity, water, groceries, and those type of things. You want to really consider the cost of those. You're going to need communication, a telephone. You want to look at that pricing. What else is important students don't think about? Health insurance. Okay? Try to research affordable health insurance for students. Some schools offer this health insurance. A lot of schools have what they call infirmaries or healthcare centers on campus. This may be part of tuition. Also, just look into an extra health insurance for yourself. That may be part of tuition as well. Research the books and supplies, your academic supplies, transport. Research the professors. There are sites with professor ratings. I would also research whether the schools help you have good support systems. There are some schools that don't have good support systems, especially when it comes for housing. A lot of schools are in a housing crunch. I've heard of schools like in states like North Carolina, Ohio, Texas, really helping students find places to live. And a lot of schools overbook. So be aware of this, international students. A lot of these schools overbook. It's like a flight that overbooks, and then they don't have room for you to stay. Some of the horror stories I heard are mainly in places like San Francisco, where they have homeless and homeless students, and places like Toronto, Ontario, where students are finding it very difficult to find a place to stay. There was no school I heard of in Toronto that helped any student find a place, find housing. They were very unhelpful. I'm not going to call all the schools names, I'm just going to say, in a place like Toronto or Hamilton, chances of a school helping you find residents when they're overbooked and overcrowded is not good. I've heard better situations in provinces like Alberta, New Brunswick. Look up schools in New Brunswick, Alberta. In the US, you want to look up schools like in Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee. Even what they call some schools in the US are historically black, historically African American. I've heard of one of them helping their students as well. So you also may want to look into those schools. Look into smaller schools, right? Some smaller schools they have basically, some of them have a religious affiliation where people, their priority is making sure your welfare is number one priority. Okay, look up these schools. Not all of the time you need to go to a Harvard or Yale, Princeton. There are schools with good academic standing, but they have a good support for you. I would suggest downloading a language app, improving your English, speak with English before you come, practice your English. You could also watch English-speaking TV shows, news programs. Also, if you can't keep up with the news, in the place where you want to go to school, watch the local news. If you have more than one option, watch the local news in all those cities. That will give you an idea how the life is there, how the crime is there, how friendly the people are or may not be. When you get to these campuses, I would say, I know you're going to need to make connections with people. Maybe there will be people there to support you. Some schools do have support groups for international students. They have support programs. They have people who mentor you, who look after you, who just check up on you. Some don't. I would say join clubs and societies. This is where you can make the connection. You can also make a connection for jobs and things like that. I would also say try to get immersed into the culture of the local area you live. Understand the culture. Understand the different cultures in the area. Sometimes there's more than one culture there. Sometimes when you go here, you experience culture shock. So try to study this before you come. That way you'll be prepared on how to react and how to communicate. Make sure you research the social norms, what's appropriate to do, what's not appropriate to do. You will see people who look different than you, different colors, different behaviors, different way of dressing, different ways of communicating. Another important thing is be familiar with the local laws. There are laws that must be kept. You don't want to find yourself in trouble. Stay away from people who might ask you to do something illegal. And in regards to local laws, take care of yourself. I know another international student. He was a friend of a friend. He was going to go on a helicopter ride with other students. Another international student had to talk to him. He said, look, this is not your country. These students that are going, they have more support, more rights, they have insurance. You're an international student, you may not have the insurance to cover in case you get injured. So you have to be careful the activities you get involved in. It's not just a legal issue, but just for your safety, right? Make sure you're well trained if you decide to do certain activities. The activities like canoeing, swimming, these helicopter rides, or just anything, you can just think about it. Anything that may require a little bit of risk, think twice. Do you have health insurance? Do you have a means of supporting yourself if you get injured? These are things you have to consider before you take any type of risks. Also, be familiar with your rights as an immigrant. Make sure your visas and paperwork is in current standing. Make copies. Make many copies. Always keep copies. Memorize the information on your visa and paperwork. Always keep copies of your passport, flight documents, student visa, your admissions letter, your medical records, your academic documents. It's good to have some emergency contacts. I'm going to look at a particular video of some students who had some challenges. And again, this is specifically to this happens in other schools, but this is specific in Ontario. It's not talked about as much, but there are several international students that have committed suicide because they have struggled. They may not have a place to stay, and they borrowed money. Their parents borrowed money to send them, and their families depending on them. And it is not their fault. The economics of where they live is troublesome, and it's hard for them to find money to support themselves, much less, even a family back home. It's hard to find money to help them finish school, and there has become it's been quiet, but there's a high suicide rate of a lot of international students because they ran into these challenges and they had nowhere else to turn.
19-year-old Dilpreet talks to her parents every day to ease the loneliness and the pressure to succeed.
Do you feel that pressure, though? That you don't want to disappoint your parents?
I don't want to. Yeah, I do feel the pressure. We have to say something to them to console them and to say, no, don't worry, Dad, I'm fine, I'm doing good. So that's kind of lie, but...
Why do you have to lie?
Because we don't really want them to be depressed. We don't really want them to cry for us because they sent us here to have a great life.
Instead, like many, she feels they were sold a lie. The face of Canada's colleges is changing. Over the last 5 years, the number of international college students has more than doubled. Most are from rural India, enrolled in small career colleges, and many are struggling to make it.
My course is tourism,
computer programming,
nursing leadership and healthcare management.
Before they even step into a classroom, newly arrived international students like these line up for social insurance numbers so they can get a job. Their parents' hard work only covers a portion of their costs.
I'm here to get my SIN number, and I'm waiting here from 6:30.
And finding a job isn't easy either. Dilpreet needed work so badly, she took a job in a plastics factory 100 kilometers from where she's living.
Like, it's too far from my home, so they provide ride. So it takes around 2 hours to go there, and it takes 2 hours to come back. So it's like 12 hours of work, 4 hours of like traveling, so it's like 16 hours in total. And I have to manage my college, I have to manage my home and everything.
It's an example of what I was talking about. You really need to research where you're going. These people are in the Toronto area, which is very expensive and a very hard place to live. I would not recommend going to school close to Toronto at all. She is just one of many students that have a very challenging time trying to manage school and pay for things. Again, her parents cannot really afford it. A lot of people tend to hide the problems from their parents because they don't want to cause them any worries. But I think that it's time that as international students from all over the world need to look at these issues and take them head on, right? It's not just one of many, and these are challenges that are just overwhelming, that sometimes the stories just don't do justice unless you actually know the person. I'm going to look at another video of a young man who had some serious struggles, and it was very challenging for him, and it was a very sobering story about him and his family.
It proved too much for Lovepreet Singh. The 20-year-old jumped in front of a train last April after 3 years in Canada, leaving his family back home unconsolable. We're destroyed, his mother says. Somehow we pass the time. His father is at a loss to understand. We spoke daily, he says, but Lovepreet never told us anything was wrong. This is all they have left. The family sold their few acres of land to pay for their son's studies and borrowed heavily to keep sending him more and more money. Their dreams of a better life now shattered.
Yes, these are some of the challenges that a lot of families have to deal with. They are serious challenges. I would suggest all international students take into heavy consideration where you're going and how much risk you're taking. Sometimes it's okay to delay, right? You don't have to rush. I would also say take a look again. I can't stress this more. Look at the economics. Prepare. Okay, find a cheaper place. Okay, it's not always. You don't have to always go to these bigger cities. I know they have larger communities of people that may speak your language there, but the lifestyle is very hard. So again, I would say do your research, take your time, don't believe all the advertisements and recruiters, research for yourself, take your time researching and empower yourself with knowledge. Knowledge is your greatest tool when trying to find where it's best for you to get your education. Thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe. I really appreciate your time. Thanks again.